Welcome to the All Eers podcast, powered by HD Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome into a new edition of the All Eers podcast, a WVU-based podcast which is centered around West Virginia University athletics. We're hitting a lot of different topics throughout this offseason. As we've already talked already, we spoke just a couple of weeks ago with Honor Huff, who played basketball at WVU. Then last week's episode, if you missed that, I encourage you to go back and watch that. Go listen to that. We spoke with Nathan Adrian, former Mountaineer forward, as he is now in the marina business up near Morgantown at Deep Creek Lake. And we had some news recently. We've had a lot of news in regards to the transfer portals. As everybody knows, what the transfer portal gives is very easily what it can take. But the WVU women's basketball team recently added and got an announcement, a very special announcement from former Wheeling Park graduate Alexis Bordas. And the name may sound familiar to a lot of you high school basketball enthusiasts, especially on the girls basketball side. Alexis won multiple Mary O awards, winning 3, being in very rare company. She was the first girls basketball player since Alexis Hornbuckle to do so in the early 2000s to win at least 3 Mary O awards. So Alexis announced back on Monday that she will be committing to playing and spending her next season at West Virginia University for Coach Kellogg, who, by the way, has had a fantastic offseason thus far. If you missed the recent news regarding the women's basketball team, I encourage you to go to our website, wvgazettemail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Gazmail Sports, that's G-A-Z Mail Sports, on Facebook at HD Media Sports, and on YouTube, HD Media Gaming. So let's talk with Alexis Bordas as she joins us now on the program, on the All Eers program. Alexis, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you and I mentioned before we hit record, it seems like these last couple of hours, especially these last 24 hours, has been very chaotic, hectic, whatever word you want to throw in there, hasn't it been?
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, since I entered the portal, those are all words I'd use to describe my life. It's been very crazy, but definitely exciting.
So along that line, let's start there. Talk about the portal. You entered your name just a couple of weeks ago after your lone season at Duquesne. What were you looking for whenever you entered your name into the transfer portal?
Yeah, I had a great experience at Duquesne. I will forever be grateful for all of the people and the experience that I had. It was the best I could have asked for in terms of the people I was surrounded by. It was just from top to bottom. I was super happy with the relationships I've built and everything along those lines. But when I entered the portal, it was a very tough decision, probably the toughest decision I've ever had to make up to this point. But I wanted to compete at the highest level and play in the NCAA tournament and play for a winning program. And I know that that's what Coach Kellogg has built at WVU, and that's what it's going to continue to be. I
know dating back to whenever you announced your commitment to Duquesne, you mentioned how the relationships were really big for you with that coaching staff there. But when you started chatting with a lot of these different coaches, whether it be an assistant coach or a head coach, how important, again, were those relationships throughout this recruiting process, but now having a year under your belt at the collegiate level?
Yeah, it was super important. That was number one thing for me going into this process the first time, and it stayed number one the second time. It was definitely much different this time around since, I was in the portal for 17 days, I think. So it's kind of like speed dating is what they call it. So you're on the phone literally all day for the first few days, and then you're taking visits, and you're trying to really get to know these people in a very short amount of time, which makes it kind of difficult, but also fun at the same time. So definitely was challenging in a way to, build those relationships in such a short period of time. But ultimately, it helps that I've had a prior relationship with Coach Kellogg and his staff, and I know that it's going to be a great experience for me.
Having that prior relationship with Coach Kellogg and his staff, did that kind of help in regards to making your decision a lot easier whenever you were going through that process?
Yeah, definitely. Because like I said, relationships are very important to me, and I know that Coach Kellogg's reputation speaks for itself and the type of culture he's created, and I know that it's going to be great with all the players that they've added and all the coaches. Building those relationships is super important to me, so it definitely helped.
Take me back to your only season at Duquesne. You had a fantastic freshman season there up in the Pittsburgh area. You're the only player to start in all 31 games for Duquesne last season. You were a 4-time Rookie of the Week in the Atlantic 10. You tied second most three-pointers made in a single season in program history. You led the team and ranked 5th in the A-10 in scoring, averaging 15.5 per game, ranked 12th in the country with 2.9 triples per game, and 26th with 90 total three-pointers. So talk to me about your season there up at Duquesne. What stood out to you? What surprised you, if anything, in your lone season with up there?
Yeah, like I said, it was a great experience, and I really enjoyed my time here, and will always be thankful for that. I would say one thing that surprised me was the attention I got from opposing defenses. Obviously, in high school, I faced face guards, double teams all the time, but seeing face guards almost every game at the collegiate level was definitely not something I anticipated, but definitely made me better. I think I had to work on other parts of my game to, break free from those defenses and create for myself to be able to score. I also had to play some more point than I anticipated, so that was good to add that to my game and enhance my ball handling, my passing, just work on other areas of my game that I didn't necessarily expect, but I think were definitely good learning experiences for me.
In regards to your confidence, you mentioned the multiple defenders getting thrown at you, having multiple defenders guard you at one time. Does that help your confidence at all whenever you do see opposing defenses throw multiple people at you? I know that helps you at the high school level, but at the collegiate level, I assume that's a different animal, right?
Yeah, I would say I've definitely always been a very confident person on and off the court, but when you see that you're the focus of the other team's scouting report, it definitely shows respect and builds confidence and just, shows that it's a testament to your hard work and just, it definitely means a lot, and it definitely did build some confidence there.
So whenever you were looking at how these defenses were guarding you, was it more of an in-game moment type of thing, or was it more coaching? Was it more film? What went into that for you that allowed you to continue to get comfortable there?
Yeah, it was a lot of film beforehand, especially after the first couple of games when teams started to do it. It was something that we knew was going to happen, so we expected it. So preparing beforehand by watching film on the way that teams have guarded me thus far, and then several teams we played multiple times in our conference. So if we played them again, going back and watching the first game, my coaches did a great job too of trying to create new plays, new options to get me open, and they would always watch film with me. And then in our workouts, even centered around setting up my defender, coming off screens tight, and reading the defense in terms of how to use that screen. So it was really a joint effort with film, workouts, everything like that.
Looking at some of your statistics from this past season, obviously the game that immediately stands out amongst the rest is that game on December 21st against the Pitt Panthers where you scored 38 points that game. So talk to me about how your game has progressed from maybe the last time people saw you on the Civic Center floor, the Charleston Coliseum and Convention Center floor, to now entering your second season of college basketball. Where do you see the biggest difference or biggest growth in your game?
I would say probably my ability to create my own shot, I think, has really gotten a lot better. I think this year and my senior year of high school have really developed those skills more. I think that towards the end of the year, too, I used my mid-range a lot more, getting to my one-dribble pull-up. That's something that, as teams were scouting me, obviously, I'm a three-point shooter. So forcing me to put the ball on the floor and then going into that mid-range is something that I found was really good for my game. So, yeah, I would definitely say creating my own shot, getting my mid-range more, and then using my ball handling to shake myself free.
We talk so much about conferences on this show, and especially just at the Big 12 level, going from a G5 now to a Power 5. How much of a chip on your shoulder now do you have moving up a level, I guess you could say, regardless if it's in Division I, but now you're moving up a level, going from G5 to Power 5. How much more of a chip do you have on your shoulder moving up a level?
Yeah, you definitely have to have that, especially, to get to this point. I've had so much hard work and dedication, and that's what's gotten me here. So you have to have that. You have to have confidence and have that chip on your shoulder to, be like, I'm good enough to play this level. I'm going to go out and prove it. And that's definitely something that I have.
You go back to the transfer portal. I know your name was only in there for a couple of weeks, but was it hard making that decision? I know you mentioned earlier that you really enjoyed your first season at Duquesne, but go a little bit further into that. What made your lone season special, and how much more difficult was that decision to make, entering your name in the portal after only one season at Duquesne?
Yeah, it was definitely really difficult. The people that I'm surrounded with really made it challenging. I've formed great relationships with my coaches, and then I've met my best friends on my team, and luckily that you have FaceTime and text messages, so that will still travel no matter where I'm at. But it made it really hard to leave those people. But luckily I'm not going too far, so I can still visit and hang out with all of them. But definitely made it very difficult, and I'm super grateful to all of them because I couldn't have had the year I had without all of them.
One final question before we take a break. You mentioned the relationships with your teammates. What allowed that bond to be so unified or so strong amongst you all that led to the success that you guys had this season?
Yeah, I think it really starts at the top with the culture that Coach Burt had created. He'd been at Duquesne for several seasons, I think 19 seasons. So he's established that culture, and it really starts from the top with him and then his assistant coaches that he's hired. And then it just trickles down to all the players. And I think that we truly did all like each other. And that shows with even my other teammates that have entered the portal along with myself, the support that we've gotten from the team that's still here. So it just shows that it was really more than just basketball, and we've created lifelong friendships.
We're talking with Alexis Bordas, who recently just committed to West Virginia University for Coach Mark Kellogg after spending her one season up at Duquesne. And our continued conversation with Alexis will happen here on the other side of this break. This is All Ears.
As the game gets faster, stronger, more dynamic, your equipment has to keep up. Introducing the Riddell Axiom, the next evolution in football protection, designed to match the speed and strength of today's athlete. Contact West Virginia Riddell representative Casey Turley at 304-552-5960. Gear up, play smart, stay protected.
HD Media Sports is your one-stop destination for top high school and college sports coverage in the Mountain State. From Morgantown to Mingo County, our award-winning reporters keep you informed about your favorite teams and players, including exclusive coverage of the Marshall Thundering Herd and the West Virginia Mountaineers. Follow HD Media Sports on Facebook to stay up to date on the latest news, features, and game coverage.
Welcome back into the All Ears podcast, a WVU-based podcast here, and we're talking with Alexis Bordas, who recently committed to the WVU women's basketball program, and Coach Mark Kellogg. And Alexis, talking more now about WVU and the success that they've amounted under Coach Kellogg in his years up in Morgantown, what stood out to you about WVU? Was it more so being closer to, or not really closer since Wheeling and Pittsburgh are very close to one another, but is it just being able to come back into your home state and play for your home state, or is it moving up to the Power 5 level? What stood out to you about WVU when you went through that process again?
Yeah, really, it checked every box in terms of, like I said, the people and the culture, the fit. I think Coach Kellogg has put together a great team with his additions in the portal, and obviously the reigning Big 12 champs. So to go to a program that's already had a history of being very good and winning in recent years is really important to me. And then every other thing that you said also goes along with it. I have pride for playing for my home state. It's the team I grew up cheering for as a little girl, so it definitely is going to be extra special to put that jersey on and have all the support from the West Virginia fans. And then, playing at a higher level is something that I've always dreamed of as a little girl, and to compete against all the best teams in the country and play in the NCAA tournament, those were all things that were definitely important to me, and WVU checked all those boxes.
You mentioned the fit word, and I'm curious where your head is at with that, because obviously with Mark Kellogg's teams, he always finds a way to score, but it also starts on the defensive end of the floor, and I know you can do both of those, but how did you see yourself fit with this culture and with this system that Mark Kellogg has established?
Yeah, I think that one thing I really take pride in is my motor, and always playing hard. That's my greatest attribute, is how hard I work on the court and then in practice and in workouts. So I think that having that motor, just playing nonstop, will, do well for me and help me in his defensive pressure system, and then that creates offense. So I think just having that, and along with my IQ, are really important to the defensive pressure that his team has.
When you talk about the level of intensity, I know you mentioned your high motor, but how do those two things go hand in hand for you? Because obviously with Kellogg and his intensity, whether it be on offense or defense, has amounted to the success that they've had. But you mentioned your motor and how high of a motor you have. How do you see those two things going hand in hand, and how do you kind of see yourself wiggling into that mix?
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to have, especially playing for a coach that values those things. So to continue to, work on my conditioning to keep that high motor and be able to play as long as possible, and do whatever I can to get on the floor and to help the team's success.
Continue further with your answer there about playing for your home state. I know you played your lone season at Duquesne. You played high school basketball at Wheeling Park. You obviously had a ton of success with the Patriots and Coach Ryan Young, which we'll talk about here in a second. But just the importance of that, the importance of coming back to your home state, being able to represent your home state. What's the pride factor like for you whenever you do kind of get that going? What's that sense of feeling going to be like for you whenever you do put on the gold and blue whenever the season tips off?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be amazing. I've received so much support and love from WVU fans already, just on social media and people reaching out and messaging me. So I've already felt so much of that, and I know it's only going to be more once I'm actually out there playing. So super excited for that, and obviously to have my family who has grown up and have family members that went to WVU and played sports there. They're super excited for me, and so to have that support travel with me, it's super special.
Now, as you know, and as I know as well, the expectations being in state and being able to amount to that success, how much of that do you put on your shoulders just in regards of the pride factor, but also weighing in the expectations as well, being in state, having the success that you already had in your first season? What's your approach with that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely higher expectations, and people obviously know who I am more because I'm from West Virginia. But I think you just have to be confident and not really care if there's any negativity out there, because you're going to get that anywhere you go. So just staying confident, keeping my circle close and small, and just, going out there and doing whatever I can. You can't really control all the pressure and everything that's outside noise. So just staying focused on, working hard and doing everything I can out there is what's going to be important for me.
Now, I have to ask, because you mentioned how you've had family members that went to WVU and played athletics there. Obviously, your Uncle Tom played football, as well as your Uncle Josh as well. Who's the best athlete in the family? Because obviously your brother Jay is also a really good quarterback for Wheeling Park as well. I mean, obviously you guys have had a lot of one-on-ones, I would assume. But who's the best athlete in your all's family?
Oh, definitely me. I'll say that to all of them. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, my uncles were great athletes. They both played football there, and my aunt ran track at WVU and was an All-American. So definitely have a lot of good athletes in the family, and Jay has had a great seasons at Park and is only going to have a better one next year. I'm super excited for him. But yeah, I'll still be number one on that list.
So when you look at your game, I know we mentioned in the first segment about where you feel that your game has grown, but where do you still feel that your game still needs to grow and develop moving forward?
Yeah, I've really been working on my finishing, especially now going to a higher level and playing in the Big 12. There's going to be a lot more size and strength inside when I get to the hole. So working on finishing through contact, and just shooting at a higher percentage from inside the paint I think is going to be really important, as well as developing a good floater to kind of shoot that over the tall defenders. And then I've also been working on my change of pace to slow down, freeze the defender, use my shooting ability to kind of get them in the air and then blow by them. So using my strengths to then build off of that is something that I think is going to be really important for me. And then just to continue defensively, working on my agility, my speed, my quickness, things that I have always done, but just, really focusing on more.
Talking about Coach Mark Kellogg now, when you look at him compared to other coaches that you've dealt with, whether it be Coach Young at Wheeling Park or the coaching staff that you had up at Duquesne, what separates or what stands out to you about Coach Kellogg?
Yeah, I've definitely played for some great coaches, so I've loved my time with all of them, but he's a winner. He's won at every level that he's been at. He has proven it, and then he just keeps moving up levels and has done it at every single level. So to play for someone like that who has a great reputation, is a winner, and has so much respect, everyone respects him so much, and then he just will bring out the best in you. He'll force you to be a better player, to work hard. I'm just really excited to be coached by him and to get better.
Let's talk about a little bit about your leadership, because I know at the high school level you were a very vocal leader. You were very passionate. You did a lot of things on the court that allowed your teammates to get better throughout the course of the season, which led to a state title in high school. How much of a leadership role do you feel you want to take on at WVU, and how do you feel that those leadership qualities grew in your lone season at Duquesne?
Yeah, I definitely think that from the beginning to the end of the season at Duquesne, I definitely grew into that leadership role. It was a little bit challenging at first for me being a freshman. I didn't want to come in and overstep in any way, so I was definitely very careful with, what I was saying. I didn't want to be too much or anything like that, but I also didn't want to be timid, so kind of approaching that in a smart way. And then I think all my teammates really respected me, and especially once games started and I was producing, they really respected everything that I said. And then leading by example obviously gains you respect as well. So I think that by the end of the year, I really grew into that leadership role, and I plan to hopefully continue that at WVU. I think obviously I'm familiar with things West Virginia, so I think that can help. And the team's going to be very new. We have lots of transfers coming in, so just to be able to step into that, and it's not like anything's really established yet, so do my best to be one of those leaders.
Yeah, you mentioned the class that you guys have coming in at WVU. We'll talk about that here in a second, but just being an in-state player, having a year of college basketball under your belt, and being able to represent your home state, how much of a leadership role do you feel you'll take on just in regards of just allowing your teammates to understand the expectations of playing for this state and playing for the university, but also just managing those expectations, already having a good connection and relationship with Coach Kellogg?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps knowing that West Virginia is special, and that the pride that we all have being from West Virginia is special. So having an understanding of that and being able to help my teammates learn that, which I'm sure they already have from being on campus and talking to all the coaches. It's easy to feel when you're there how special the state is and how special the program is. So that should definitely make it easier to embrace that role.
A couple more for you, and I appreciate your time. And we're talking with Alexis Bordas, former Wheeling Park standout and now a current commit to the WVU women's basketball team. And Alexis, going back to your time at Wheeling Park, I know we can talk about certain seasons all we want to. I know you won a state title, you won multiple State Player of the Year awards, and for good reason. But when you look back on your high school career and playing at Wheeling Park and seeing the growth of girls basketball, especially during that time when Caitlin Clark was really booming on the scene nationally, what will you remember 5 to 15, 20 years from now whenever you look back at your time at Wheeling Park that really will always be memorable for you, I guess you could say?
Yeah, I would definitely say winning a state championship was the most memorable thing from my high school career. It's something that I really wanted from the moment I stepped on the court as a freshman, and to get that my junior year was super special. And I actually rewatched the championship game a couple weeks ago because I was just feeling all the feels and wanted to watch it again. So that's definitely been something that I will forever remember and was super special. And also the friendships that I've built playing with those girls, and I still talk to so many of them today. And the relationships are something that you will always have.
Now I know what I'm gonna ask, and I can already tell myself that I'm already gonna get a phone call from Ryan Young whenever I ask this. But do you have a memorable or funny Ryan Young story you can share with us?
Oh gosh, let me think. I feel like there was something every day with him. I would love just every day coming into practice and just he was always full of jokes. Some people don't really know that about him, just looking at him or talking to him, but he's a very fun head coach to play for. Obviously, it was a lot of business and hard work, but we always had fun. So I can't really think of any one thing in particular, but he definitely was always full of jokes or something funny happening. But he was really helpful through this process too, to lean on. And it's funny because I didn't really expect any college coaches to reach out to my high school coach, but there were several that did. So he had to take a couple of calls for me and let me know who was reaching out to him too. So he's always helped me and supported me through college as well.
And final question for you. I want to ask you this. I should have asked you this a couple minutes ago, but going from the bottom of the totem pole, entering high school, to then amounting to being at the top of the totem pole, winning multiple State Player of the Year awards, to then going back to the bottom of the totem pole in college. Now you're starting to move back up. How do you go about weighing that and just continuing for that to fluctuate moving forward?
Yeah, I think that anytime you enter anything and you're new at it, it's, a little bit of like a challenge. And it's like, oh, you're new to this. You're kind of not really sure what to expect. But I think something that I will always take with me is just my work ethic. And I tell everyone that that's what's gotten me where I'm at. And it's going to continue to take me everywhere I want to go. And to never lose that, and to always lean on the people that love me, my parents and my siblings, all my family. They've been super supportive of me. So to lean on them and all of the adversity and hardships, and then to just keep pushing and keep working hard. And there's going to be adversity through everything in life. So just to keep working hard, I think will always take you anywhere you want to go.
Well, Alexis, we appreciate your time. Thank you. Congratulations on committing to West Virginia University, and hopefully down the road we get to see you play for the Mountaineers, but look forward to that. Tell your family we said hello, and good luck moving forward, getting into off-season and summer conditioning and workouts.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. That's Alexis Bordas, former Wheeling Park graduate and current commit to the West Virginia University women's basketball team. Break to take here. We will be joined in our next segment by Mitch Vingle for this week's edition of Vingle's Views. This is the All Ears Podcast.
HD Media Game Day is your streaming home for the best in live high school sports across West Virginia. Featuring football, basketball, soccer, and more, HD Media Game Day brings the action to you for free, exclusively on our YouTube channel and at hdmediagameday.com. When you can't make it to the game, HD Media Game Day has you covered.
Oh, good gravy. The kind made from real premium sausage. The kind that's smothered over deliciousness. The kind you can only get at Tudor's Biscuit World. That's the gravy that's oh so good. It's the perfect topping to your biscuits or your taters, and even makes a delicious side. It's oh so good gravy. Tudor's Biscuit World. We're dripping with oh good gravy.
Final segment here of the All Ears Podcast. We appreciate however you are listening to us. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. We are pleased to be joined by former Charleston Gazette Mail sports editor and WVU beat writer Mitch Vingle for this week's edition of Vingle's Views. Mitch, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How about you?
My friend, I'll be honest with you. This is a heavy Wheeling show today. We just had Alexis Bordas on, former Wheeling Park graduate, and just played at Duquesne. Now we got you on. Hey, I love Wheeling. I got to admit, I love going up to Wheeling, especially whenever the state football championships were up in Wheeling at Wheeling Island Stadium. A lot of great food. I will say this. I'll give my hot take. I know you got one here coming up in a second, but D. Felice Bros is better than DeCarlo's. I'll say it now.
Well, see, I'm from Fairmont, and none of it compares to Colosesnos and Muriel. So
ooh, that's a great point.
I may be an outcast here, but I got to be true to my home roots, and Muriel's and Colosesnos pizza. I just haven't seen anybody beat it yet.
Now I got to ask, what's your go-to meal when you go to Muriel's?
It's hard to beat the spaghetti. I mean, the sauce
100%.
is just tremendous.
Only right answer.
Just, yeah. And plus, I know Rocco, so, he gives me a hard time all the time. So
I have to admit this,
I just
too.
love going there.
The bruschetta might be the best menu item, arguably.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. You give me that.
There's no wrong there.
No, 100% not. That garlic bread. We can give you a little chicken parm, a little ravioli. I can go down the whole menu if I need to. My dad and I, funny story, so when I was in college, my dad would come up and pick me up from college and bring me home, whether it be for like winter break, spring break, whatever it may be. And he wouldn't even have to say anything to me. We would just get in the car after he picked me up, drive down 79, get off that exit there in Fairmont, and go right to Muriel's. We'd sit there for 2 hours, and we would have to take turns the remainder of the trip home just to make sure one of us is at least awake, because we would be so tired after eating all the food.
Yep.
It's good though. It's very good. Shout out to Muriel's. But well, Mitch, one of the things I wanted to talk with you about is your Mount Rushmore of WVU football greats, and we posted something on our social media pages on Twitter and on Facebook about it. We had a lot of great answers, and I thought no one had the same. I don't think anybody had the same answer, which is always encouraging to see because that means that everybody's thinking about somebody different and making sure that everybody is hitting the bases. And I wanted to ask this because I think so often, especially with the NFL draft recently happening, there's been so many great Mountaineer football players to have a fantastic career in Morgantown, but then also amount to the success that they had in the NFL. And you know, the names can go on and on and on. You could talk about Sam Huff, Chuck Howley, Darryl Talley, Geno Smith even recently, Tavon Austin as well. The list can go on and on and on. And I'm really glad that we were able to do this at this time. And I wanted to get your perspective, Mitch, because you've seen WVU football in a lot of different shapes and forms, and you've seen a fantastic and a great amount of WVU football players to go through that program. So I'll open the floor up to you. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of WVU football greats?
All right. First of all, I have to say a few that just missed. Okay.
I like it.
The ones that just missed my list was Steve Slayton. I mean, College Football Hall of Fame, Sugar Bowl MVP, you know, and win over Georgia. I mean, he was electric, Heisman finalist. I mean, you talk about Pat White and that spread offense, but without Steve Slayton, those 2000 teams, you know, don't happen without him. Tavon Austin, you mentioned, most explosive player ever at WVU, YouTube legend, most fun guy ever to watch. All-American, you know, you can go on and on. What was it, 572 all-purpose yards against Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned my guy, Darryl Talley. As you know, I was able to visit with him not too long ago at the Central Florida game. Defensive legend. I mean, one of my favorite players ever. I mean, consensus All-American. Gave Pitt and Dan Marino all kinds of hell. I battled him and Bruce Smith, went back and forth. Of course, played for Buffalo Bills. Just an awesome player. And, you know, he lifted West Virginia defensively. But here's my hot take, okay? Somebody that you could put on there, I think, and I'm sure nobody even mentioned him in all the comments and all that, is Oliver Luck.
Ooh.
I mean, when Don Nehlen led West Virginia to, you know, with Nehlen, he led West Virginia to its first significant win in my lifetime over the Florida Gators in the 81 Peach Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Mountaineers, when I was going to school, they went from 2-9 to 9-2, finished in the top 25. I mean, that was really the spark. He still ranks high in West Virginia W passing. And then here's the topper. He went on to become the AD, and that's significant because he got W in the Big 12 when the Big East was sinking. You know, he built the baseball field. He got out in front of the NIL when he wasn't even in administration by starting Country Roads Trust, you know, which helped the football program. So you put all of that together, and I could definitely see putting him on the Mount Rushmore. Now, my real Mount Rushmore, though, you got to start with Don Nehlen, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Godfather. Turned W around, took the Mountaineers to a national championship game. That's the only national championship game, thanks, unfortunately, because of 13-9. Won 202 games, College Football Hall of Fame. He was the Coach of the Year in '88. All-around good guy. 90 years old in January, by the way. Major Harris has to be on there. Changed everything. Made WVU nationally relevant in the 80s. Led them to that national title game against Notre Dame. He was electric. He basically introduced the country to the idea of a dynamic dual threat quarterback before it became common. You know, Heisman, up for the Heisman. Like I said, he really put West Virginia on the map. my third one would be Patrick Christian White. You know, you could say also most important player in program history. 2-time Big East Offensive Player of the Year. Something that I'm sure you know, Taylor. He passed up a 6-figure baseball contract with the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Made Adam Bednarik a trivia answer, you know, because of the way he played. Four bowl wins, you know, the face of, you know, one of the two most successful eras W's had. And number 4, I have to put my guy Sam Huff. He's a legend, not only at W, but in football history. You know, he Hall of Famer. In the 1950s, he was the guy. I mean, everybody my age looked up to him. He was the hero. You know, went to Farmington High. Pro Football Hall of Fame, known for his battles with Jim Brown, played for the Giants and Redskins. College Football Hall of Fame. And I promise you that nobody else in W football history ever had a documentary narrated by Walter Cronkite.
Amen to that.
A Violent World of Sam Huff. And, of course, his number is retired. So those are my 4. You got to go Don Nehlen, Major Harris, Pat White, and Sam Huff.
I love that list. I love the guys that you mentioned that were on the outside looking in as well. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to give the top 4 vote getters that the people that commented on our social media pages said. And I'm also going to give the names as well that were also in the mix that did not quite make the cut. And a couple of these names, I'm going to be honest with you, I was not expecting a couple of these names, but they bring up really, really good points with this. So the top 4 vote getters actually were 3 of the 4 that you said, the only one being Darryl Talley and not Don Nehlen. So they had Pat White, who had the most, then Sam Huff, Major Harris, then Darryl Talley. So that rounds up the 4 from our social media comments. And then Don Nehlen was obviously one of the outsiders looking in. But then get a load of this, Mitch, because this is a really interesting list from what our commenters said. Chuck Halley, Tavon Austin, Danny Buggs, Canute Curtis, Jim Braxton, Amos Zaraway. You mentioned Steve Slayton. Then somebody mentioned Bobby Bowden. I thought that was pretty interesting that they mentioned Bobby Bowden. Now, granted,
yeah, that is.
Everybody knows the story about how that ended, but the fact that they put Bobby Bowden on there, that was interesting. So I applaud our commenters for helping us out here with our question of the week on this week's edition of All Ears. But Mitch, here's my list, and I love the reasoning as to why you chose them, because I think that's very, very, very important when doing something like this, because I think I'm a very stats-heavy guy, and if you don't have the stats or the notes to back it up, I think a lot of times people get drifted away in what people say. So to start, I'm going to start with Patrick White, as you mentioned. Alabama native, joined WVU. I love the fact that you mentioned how Adam Bednarik became a trivia answer following what Pat White did. I think we can save this for another podcast. To me personally, I know this is probably going to make a lot of people angry at me. I would personally say that Pat White is the greatest quarterback to ever wear a Mountaineer uniform. I know what Major Harris did. I know what Pat White did. But if we're going based off of a quarterback statistical analysis and what they were able to accomplish in a mass, now I also understand too that the years of how they played are a lot different. I do get that. I do. But I think what Pat White was able to do in an era where people were still trying to figure out the spread offense, they were still trying to figure out quarterbacks in general, and especially in the mid-2000s when the quarterback play was at an elite level. You had Pat, you had Sam Bradford from Oklahoma, you had Colt McCoy from Texas, Tim Tebow from Florida. I mean, I can go on and on and on about these guys that played college football. Matt Leinart even in the early to mid 2000s that even bled over to the late 2000s. I'll just say that whole decade in general, because that whole decade was just absolutely loaded in that mix. So I think with Pat White's name, and you can say the same thing about Major, but with Pat and the significance that he had in that decade and the success that he had, started and played and won in all 4 bowl games that he played, and first quarterback to do so, and then is the nation's all-time leading rusher as a quarterback. Now, I know Denard Robinson from Michigan is in the mix. I do not accept that answer because Denard Robinson took snaps at running back. So I do not accept Denard Robinson in this mix. Pat White is the leader and will be the leader. It's like saying that Stedman Bailey got snubbed of the Biletnikoff Award that one year. It's the same thing. Pat White is snubbed of that because people like to put Denard Robinson in that mix. So I have Pat White. Next up, I have Darryl Talley. I think what he did at the collegiate level, 7th all-time in tackles for loss with 35, 1st all-time in total tackles with 484, 7th all-time in sacks with 19, 3rd all-time in solo tackles with 282. And you mentioned the success that he had at Buffalo. Obviously, a fantastic career for him. He is one of a few Mountaineer players to have his number retired at WVU. So I got to give a nod to Darryl Talley. You mentioned Sam Huff. Again, one of the most recognizable names in Mountaineer football history, especially for what he did at the professional level with the New York Giants. I love the fact that you brought up the Walter Cronkite reference, so I love that. And then I'm going to give my hot take. Okay, you gave a hot take. I'm going to give a hot take.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Tavon Austin. Now, I know a lot of that is recency bias. I do. I know I'm only 26. I get it. But myself, I feel that I am well-versed in Mountaineer football and Mountaineer athletics as well to respect the lineage, the culture, tradition, the history of West Virginia University football. Now, with that being said, Tavon Austin's name needs to be in the mix because when you talk about recognizable names, as I just mentioned with Sam Huff, Tavon Austin's name is right there. You listen to any recruit nowadays that goes to WVU, and the question always is, how did you hear about WVU? What led you to WVU? Or what was your first impression of it? Tavon Austin's name is always in that mix. Always. So I actually looked at this the other day. I think that YouTube video of his highlight reel has about 25 or 26 million with an M, views on YouTube. And it's still prevalent to this day, 12, 13 years later. I mean, that's just a crazy thing about him.
Talking about him, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and I know Pat McAfee is very recognizable from the platform that he has with his show and what he does at ESPN with College Game Day and the Pat McAfee show. I get that. I do. And he's a very influential character in the media and sports realm in college athletics. But when you're talking about recognizable names and figures to come through West Virginia University football, Tavon Austin's name is always going to be in that mix. So for that reason, regardless of what he did, because I can go through the stats all day long, you mentioned over 550 yards of all-purpose yards against Oklahoma in 2012, recorded 3,400 career receiving yards, which is first all-time, first in receptions. The list can go on and on and on about what he did at the collegiate level. But again, I feel from the standpoint of most recognizable, Sam Huff, Tavon Austin, vice versa. It's 1A, 1B. And for that, again, I truly, truly, truly think Tavon Austin's name should be in the mix solely because of the impact that he has from an outsider's perspective, not just a regional perspective, but a much broader landscape in football in the country. What your thoughts?
Yeah, even still to this day, I think that's a good point. I'll tell you too that you brought up Chuck Halley, and Chuck Halley definitely. I should have had him on the just missed list because you could have easily put him up there.
Mm-hmm.
With what he did and how many sports did he play at WVU, and of course I think he's the only player on the losing team in the Super Bowl to win MVP. It's crazy that West Virginia has Jerry West and Chuck Halley, the only two that were ever on losing teams to win MVPs in United States major sports. And going back to Darryl Talley, to support your argument too. I'll tell you, when I was just starting out, I had classes with Darryl, but my first job was at the Beckley newspaper, and back then, if you wanted to talk to a coach, even at Pitt, which was riding really, really high at that time, You just put a request in, and there wasn't the gaggle of reporters. The coach just called you. So Foge Fazio called me at the Beckley newspaper, and here I am, just a kid out of college. And he was so nice, and I asked him about Darryl Talley, and he compared him to Hugh Green, who played for Pitt and was, finished, I think, second in the Heisman voting and almost won. And defenders never, win the Heisman, or rarely. And when he said that, it really put things into perspective about how good Darryl Talley really was. Of course, he went on to be a great player for the Buffalo Bills and everything, but that's just another little story to support you putting Darryl on there.
Yeah. Well, I think to add on guys that missed as well that people didn't bring up, you could arguably put Geno Smith in the mix. You could put Stephen Bailey in the mix. You mentioned Steve Slayton as well. The list can go on and on and on and on and on. I thought Canute Curtis was a very interesting pool as well.
Bulger.
Yeah, Mark Bulger as well. Yeah, no, absolutely. Reggie Rembard as well. I think he should be in the mix as well for guys that had fantastic careers and had great professional careers playing for the Cincinnati Bengals.
How about Pac-Man Jones? That's who we need to put on there.
Chris Henry even. You can put Chris Henry on there too.
Yep.
There's just.
Pac-Man may have been the greatest athlete.
Ooh.
If you really think about it. As far as just athletic ability, he just had his issues off the field a little bit.
Yeah, again, I think you could go down so many different avenues. Owen Schmidt, even just in regards to the impact that he had from a statewide and from a football perspective. Now coaching at Greenbrier West. There's just I feel like there's just not a wrong answer in my opinion. You'll have some
fun exercise.
Yeah, no, 100%. I thought that's a really good point by you too with Mark Bulger, just because what he did, and I saw the highlights recently of the game. I can't remember what year it was, but they were playing at Pitt. And he just threw the ball around like he was just playing a bunch of elementary school kids. I think he had like 400-some yards or something like that. He just went stupid that game. So, yeah, Mark Bulger could easily be in that mix as well. Again, there's just
another name you could throw out there as far as impact was Jeff Hofstetter.
Yeah.
When they beat Oklahoma, what was that newscaster? Boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah.
That was the game. That was the shot that was heard around college football, in West Virginia beat Oklahoma at Oklahoma that year. So, and then of course he went on to win the Super Bowl, for the Giants.
Yeah, another guy we're forgetting as well is Rat Rogers. We're forgetting about him too. You talk
Ira,
about, yeah, talking about a guy that had an impact on the football team and the program and even the university. Even I think that's another good player to throw into the mix as well. I love the fact he brought up Don Nealon too, and we'll talk about this in a different episode because I saw something. I forget who it was, but someone had posted a graphic and asked a question: who is the greatest Mountaineer football coach of all time? And that's a really interesting question because there are a few that could be thrown in the mix. I know Don Nealon led the team to a national championship. I know that. I don't want to give my answer, but
okay.
I do that.
Oh, that would be a really hot take.
Maybe we'll save that for next week. How about that? That will be next week's question.
That sounds good.
That sound good?
Okay.
All right, my friend. Well, we appreciate your time as always. Great insight for your Mount Rushmore of West Virginia University football players. So we appreciate your insight, and we'll chat with you next week.
All right. Sounds good, buddy. Look forward to it.
Yep. Thank you, sir. There he is, Mitch Vingle, former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor and former WVU Sports beat writer for the Charleston Gazette-Mail. Well, that will do it for us. Special thanks again to Mitch for joining us on this recent edition, along with Alexis Bordas, former Wheeling Park standout and current commit and recent commit to the WVU women's basketball program, and Coach Mark Kellogg. You can follow me on Twitter at Taylor_Kennedy7. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube as well. Links are in the description. Be sure to follow us on Spotify or Apple or YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to follow us. Ring the bell, as they say with the YouTubers and influencers. I guess you could say content creators. Who knows? I don't know. I'm too old. I'm just kidding. I'm 26. Anyway, be sure to do that as well and stay up to date with everything going on with this podcast. And we'll see you all next week. This is the All Eers Podcast.
You have been listening to the All Eers Podcast, powered by HD Media.